Hello, welcome to Yellow Card Vanguard. Zystral here today with a deck profile. I know we don't do this very often, but I was able to play one of the few in-person tournaments I get to play in this year and over the weekend. And even though I only went 2-2 and it was only a shop challenge, it was still a pretty high-level shop challenge with a lot of good players there. And those were two games that I really didn't deserve to win. But I just want to quickly highlight the absolute disaster that is the deck that I chose to play, how the combo works, and explain to you, going over the games, and that should explain to you why this deck should not be played. But as I mentioned on Twitter, this is Pale Moon Blademaster is what I'm calling it. It is comedy incarnate, and if you wanted to play a deck that only works if you hate your opponent, but you hate yourself more, this is the deck for you. So we're gonna blitz through the deck profile. I'm gonna mention all the card names individually, and then I'll go over the combo, and then explain like how some of the interactions work, some of what you can do, why we're playing some of the card and ratios where we are, and then I'll talk about the games, and hopefully the game should more than illustrate you as to why this deck should not be played. So obviously we have the starter, that's important. OT, hashtag ban OT, but until Overtrigger gets banned, it is a necessary evil on the deck. It just so happens that the Dark State OT combos functions very well for what the deck wants to do, but more on that in a bit. We're playing this Silverthorn Crypt from the G era because it returns itself to the deck. Usually I actually didn't need this. Like, having it return to the deck is usually not a good thing because of how the combo works, which I'll explain later, but every now and again it was good to just put itself back in so that you didn't deck out, or you just need that bit of extra crit pressure when you're comboing off. Then there is 4 Sky High Walker. This is also a stand trigger from the G era. This serves 2 important functions, actually 3. So it goes into sort of countercharge, which is good because you need soul. It's good because you can sometimes do need countercharge. And thirdly, in the deck, it's a stand trigger, and stand triggers basically give you a second chance at going off, which is really important given how inconsistent this deck is. For the Sentinels, we're playing Crit Sentinels because, again, crit pressure is good when you're going off on the Vanguard restands, which is the same reason we're playing the Dark State OT, and it is a big trigger. And finally, we're playing 3 heals. Now, heals aren't critical to the deck, but they're nice to have, and you build up such a large hand size that you have access to enough decent G guards in Pale Moon that heals are relevant. And heal is also grade 3. Being a grade 3 is super important for this deck, as we'll explain when we get to the combo. So those are the triggers. And then moving on to the grade 1s, there's 2 copies of Brazzy Bunny, 4 copies of Fire Juggler, and 4 Purple Trapezist. Everything here is part of your combo. The reason we're not playing maxed out on Brassy Bunny is because of space reasons and ride consistency reasons. And I would like to have played 3 or maybe 4, but it's really hard to cut without cutting other important combo pieces. So I'll leave 1 copy of this here and 1 copy of this here when I illustrate the combo. Then for grade 2s, again, it's a really, really thin line of 3 copies of Misdirection and 4 copies of Dancing Princess of Night Sky. And again, Misdirection is part of the combo, so I'll put 1 copy here to illustrate combo. And again, I would like to play 4. The original list was playing 4, but the deck needs to have grade 3s in it, so we ended up cutting like a bunch of ride consistency for grade 3s basically. And the argument to cutting low numbers of Brassy Bunny and Misdirection is that Dancing Princess sets up your combo. You can either find Trapezes if you're missing it, Brassy Bunny if you're missing them, Fire Jugglers if you're missing them, and it's also deck thinning. Like, every piece of Counterblast is 1 more non-grade 3 taken out of the deck, which increases your chances of hitting grade 3. So that's why I've maxed out on this, and I think it's really solid. There's an argument that when Clan Collection 5 and 6 comes out, you might want to play the Chimera, which is basically a Demonted clone, which is, by blind soul charging 3, you're quote-unquote more just as likely to hit your combo pieces as your other things as well, and also generate soul, which you do need. So that's, the jury's still out on that, but for now I think this list as is probably as good as you're going to get. So put these to the side again. This is so you need to see these 5 cards to combo, like, well, these 2 and any 3 in combination of Misdirections and Brassies. If you have this and Greedon, that's combo, which I'll explain in a bit. But yeah, so we have Greedon, which is the main Vanguard of the deck. It is actually surprisingly not bad. it's the only thing you're looking at is that the restand is not once per turn. That's the what crux of this combo. And occasionally dying on 7 damage is like helpful. Like I did actually win a game where I was on 6 damage. I had a Nugget of Greedon and Soul, I took 6 damage, and then I survived and then just rode Persona Road and won the game. So it is relevant. But as I'll mention in the tournament report, be careful. You'll see why in a second. So I'll put these here for a second because what's important is the number of grade 3s in the deck. Like I said, the deck's trying to just drive check grade 3s. And so we're just playing as many as physically possible. So the next grade 3 is Dauphin. This is a piece of support from the Festival Collection. At first, when you first read it, it seems very mediocre, very underwhelming. But it is a grade 3 that soul charges on rearguard, which is great for this deck. Like I said, you want lots of soul because Greedon Soul Blast 2 every time to combo off. And so you need lots of soul to have multi-Vanguard attacks. And this is the best soul charging grade 3 in Pale Moon. I know, like, you would expect there to be more, but no, this really is the best soul charge grade 3 in Pale Moon. And as I found out over the weekend is that even if you're not winning on the restand combo, and you actually have to stride one of your G units, the fact that this can gain a crit multiple times can actually be very, very useful. Like, it never came up for me, but there was one time where I had to stride and I realized that this would have been the better rearguard than the other bodies in the deck. But the next grade 3 they're playing a 4 of is Artilleryman. So this was originally the rearguard that I wanted to play the most because A, it gets big, so it gets 3k for your card and soul, so it gets like 50, 60k if you're truly going off, which you can reset with Harry's and so on and so forth. And counterblasting once you drop your soul is like, you're like, nothing else in the deck really costs counterblast other than like this, Strides, and the Order. Oh, and Dancing Princess, but again, you have all the counterblast to spare. And if you're winning the game that turn, dropping your soul doesn't matter at all. But that is currently 16, and then we're playing 4 more to make it 20. So we've got 3 copies of Pandemonium Tactics and 1 Time Giant Dragon. The reason I'm not playing 4 Pandemonium Tactics is because normal orders are once per turn, which is bad. Secondly, this card is a order, not a unit, and which I'll explain to you in the combo. And while it's Soul Charge 4, which is nice, it's not a card that you always really want. Whereas Time Jarrett, at worst case scenario, is a body that you can loop with Trapezist to filter and find you other combo pieces while setting up other pieces. For example, if you end up drawing the last Brassy Bunny you need, down comes Time Jarrett, puts the bunny into Soul, draws your Trapezist, very cool. Trapezist comes down, Time Jarrett in and out, Time Jarrett again, put something else into Soul, draw another card, find combo. So I was actually even thinking about playing a second Time Jarrett over a second Pandemonium Tactics, and that's like a percentage, like, literally 1 to 2 percentage points difference that I haven't figured out yet. But for now, having 20 targets I think is a good number. And of course, if you add stands into the mix, that technically gives you 24 hits on your combo, as opposed to Blademaster 16. So in theory, this is a more consistent Blademaster. The downside is that Blademaster, their stands can go back into the deck. None of these grade 3s can put themselves back into the deck, not unless you use like Fairfield or like, some other recycler. There's no way of like naturally pulling them back into the deck. So that's all the grade 3 package, which I'll put in a stack here for demonstration reasons. But let's quickly move on to the G-Zone before I demonstrate the combo. So first up are the non-G guards. These are the less relevant pieces. You've got your Tornado, you've got your Dust, standard packages. I think these 2 are the ones that are going to be the most useful, and in fact, Dust came up in one of my games, which I'll discuss later. Fairfield recycle stuff. It's pretty cost heavy. You'll never expect to win. You don't have like the Alice Leslie loop that Nightmare Doll has, and you can't reset your board, so you abuse it. You can't abuse it as much, but it's something. You give like Artilleryman a crit, and maybe it gets there. 1 copy of Leotina. She's the new Stride. It's a slightly better Harry in that it doesn't. It resets more of your board in exchange for discarding a card, which is questionable. You will probably never get the Battle Door Restrict, the Guard Restrict effect off, but it's just there to go into sometimes. Harry is mainly here along with Yvette to be Magia pieces for Dark Lord Princess. And most of the time if you're striding, your strike pattern is going to be Princess into Yvette for an Axel marker, or Princess into Harry to win, to just multi-stack win the game, into a Dust. That's like the 1 in like 50 games you stride, that's your stride pattern. But this is what the G Gun's really for, which is all these G guards. And originally I was playing more G guards. Like I was playing like, just 3 of everything and like a few Cray Elemental ones. And then I realized like, no, you don't actually need them as much. Like I only ever went to like 3 or 4 G guards at a time and they're always the same one. But you can mix them, like you can fill around however you like. So the important one is 2 copies of Furnival. Furnival is actually the best G guard in this deck because it is simple, it is costless, and most importantly, it finds you your combo pieces that you need to go off. Nothing else does this. I mean, Racked Home kind of does it. You get to discard 1 and draw 1, so you can draw your Fire Juggler or your Trapezist. And 2 copies of this Chimera, which, if they're stuck in hand and you don't have Time Jarret, then yes, this can put your Brazzies and Misstretch into the soul and go off. And it also just generates soul for you to do the restand sometimes. It's also the biggest amount of shield you can get. And it occasionally, if your opponent's misplayed, or if you time it right, it can disrupt your opponent's attack patterns, which can buy you that turn that you need to win the game. 1 Jester Dragon. The value of Jester Dragon goes down a lot because we're not playing PGs, so you can't just like, soul in a PG and then like soul out a PG. You can soul out a Crit Sentinel, but that's only 45k shield, which is just worse than the Chimera and worse than Coulthard. But it's something. It's a blind soul charge, like maybe you need a little bit more soul than Furnival. You never know when the soul charge 1 might find your combo piece. And lastly is 2 Coulthard, which is just simple, costless, huge amounts of shield. Again, nothing spectacular, but you're going to be G-guarding quite a lot. Like, 9 out of 10 times when you pick up your G-zone, it's going to be to pick up a G-guard. But like I said, you're probably never striding, because just like Mystery Flare Turbo, this is a deck that's going to go first, or wants to go first, ride Greedon, find its combo pieces, and straight up win. Just like original Blademaster in a way. But anyway, let's quickly discuss the combo. So you need to have the Fire Juggler at least on the board, either by trapezing it out or whatever. So let's say that we had to use Trapezes to pull the Fire Juggler out of Soul. Like we low rolled a little bit. That's fine because Trapeze is on the board. And in fact, you can even start with all 4 of these on the board if you're high rolling and a bunch of Soul. But in this case, we're going to assume that we just soul charge these manually or like, just natively somehow. And then our board is just other bodies like a Dancing Princess, a Trigger because we're desperate. We have a bunch of cards in Soul. And let's say some grade 3 just on the board. Time Jarret because it set up our combo. So the way this works is that Greedon and Fire Juggler both go on standby at the end of the attack, and you can choose to resolve each one in order. And that's relevant for the combo lines. So the basic combo is you start your turn with these 3 in Soul, or start your attack phase with these 3 in Soul and these on the board, and 4 other bodies other than the Fire Juggler. You'll attack with Vanguard, boosted by Fire Juggler. You do your drive checks, and as long as you drive check a grade 3, which we have because this is all grade 3s now, both of these can now resolve. So you're going to resolve the Greedon first, which will Soul Blast 2, put 4 Standing Rays into Soul, and restand. And then Fire Juggler, it goes into Soul to call something that's not Fire Juggler. So you're going to call this Trapezist that you just put in. When Trapezist comes out, all 3 of these trigger. So they'll come out. And it's worth mentioning that these all stand by at the same time. So Trapezist stands by as soon as it hits the table, but you can still resolve the other already standby effects as well. So even though they both stand by at the same time, you can choose to resolve these first. So they come out of Soul, and now you resolve the Trapezist, which puts one of these in, and pulls out the Fire Juggler again. And then because Fire Juggler came out and this was in Soul, this can come back out. So you've reset your board for a simple cost of Soul Blast 2. So it's not infinite attacks, it's basically Soul Blast 2 for every attack, as long as you drive check a grade 3. And you don't have to worry about decking out a lot of the time. Like, even though you have a lot of turbo soul charging, like you build soul really quickly, you're almost never getting to a point where you deck out. And if you do, and your opponent hasn't died by the time you deck out because like you're overdriven on the bottom of something, then they just deserve to win that game because skill difference. But you get into this point, and then you keep going again. Attack, hit your drive checks. Oh look, another grade 3. Soul Blast 2. These go in, stand, this goes in, this comes out, effect of this coming out, puts these out, this effect, in, out, something comes out, this comes out, and you just keep doing this until you don't drive check grade 3s. And the best part is, if you do it this way, because you don't pull out the rear guards until after greed on stands, if you have like only 8 or 6 soul, greed on will still gain the 15k, and the 15k stacks. So in this right now, you know, we definitely have more than 10 soul. Like, in fact, let's put ourselves down to exactly 8 soul. Right? So we're going to attack, drive check a grade 3, soul blast 2, which now puts us on 6 soul, but then put 4 rear guards in. That puts us on 10. So now Vanguard gains the 15, and then when we reset the board, it's now, instead of being a 20k, it's now a 35k plus triggers. And so the more soul you have, the more opportunities you have to, you know, keep getting that plus 15. So if you have lots of soul, you know, it starts off at 20, 35, 50, 65, so on and so forth, plus triggers. Now, you might be asking, where do these stand triggers come in? Like I mentioned, stand triggers don't substitute for grade 3s, but they give you a second chance. So let's quickly run through the combo happens if you don't check grade 3. So we'll put these two stands on top. We have our board. We'll swing boosted because we're trying to hit grade 3s. But look, stand trigger, oh no, no grade 3s. So what we can do is we can stand the 5 juggler, even though it doesn't go off, and then resolve greed on. The soul blast 2, put everything in, and stand the Vanguard. Now again, because 5 juggler didn't go off, we didn't reset the board right here. But greed on is still stood, and 5 juggler is still stood. So now we can swing again, drive check 2. Oh look, now there's finally a grade 3 to 5 juggler. So what happens here, instead of resolving the greed on first, you resolve the fire juggler first, which is put itself into soul, to pull something out. When this comes out, these boys come out, and then Pale Moon to reset once again. And now, you've resolved the fire juggler, and now you resolve the greed on. Soul blasting 2, everything goes in. So in this state, it's better for you. This way helps you dodge removal, because if you start with everything in play, and your opponent, say, uses either some sort of interactive G-Guard like Narukami or Mega Colony to rest your back row, you know, this has already been boosted, but these become rested, you then don't have 4 standing units for greed on, so then you're forced to reset the board first with Fire Juggler as opposed to the Trapezist, which becomes very, very dangerous. So doing it, resolving the Fire Juggler first to make a board, and then resolving the greed on to stand the Vanguard, helps you play around some form of removal. Also, if they can remove the Fire Juggler, then your combo ends no matter what, because Fire Juggler never resolves, so you never get to remake a board. But this is the quote-unquote second way of doing it. The only downside is that by doing it this way, hitting any stands no longer lets you keep going, because you then can't restand the greed on. And that's relevant, because even if you have no cards in hand, you can't make a board. Like, you know, you start your turn like this, you can still just go for it. You know, you can still just like, okay, swing, hopefully I'll drive check a grade 3, and then my board comes out, and then I combo. So that's like the main thing of what you're trying to do there. And like I mentioned, you know, sometimes if you occasionally need to stride, you can stride into Harry, which can reset your artilleryman columns. You've got the standard Harry plus Trapeza shenanigans, you know, resetting your whole board and whatnot. You know, you've got stand triggers can restand your Dauphins. Like, restanding Dauphin is actually very relevant, because Dauphin is not once per turn either. So you can just counterblast them to gain multiple crits each time, putting power on it each time. You know, using Artillerymen to reset your Trapezists, and so on and so forth. And the cool thing is that everything else continues to help you set up your combo. For example, other reasons that we're playing Artilleryman, because Artilleryman has the effect that you can put 2 cards from hand to soul to draw a card. So it's overall -1 for +2 soul. So let's say you have all of these in your soul. Well, Artilleryman, put 2 in, draw a card, Trapezist, Artilleryman goes in, Artilleryman comes out, put 2 more cards into soul, draw a card. And that can, you know, give you the soul you need to keep going again, or it helps you dig for pieces, so on and so forth. The only thing I think this deck is really missing is something that adds to soul and also returns from soul to hand, like a Gleipnir, basically. Like, if there was Gletnir for Pale Moon, this deck would be insane, because then you would have all this blind soul charging between Tactics and Dofund, and if you soul charge things like Fire Juggler or Trapezist or whatever, you can easily fetch them out of the deck, or the soul. So that's kind of what you're looking to do. And that is the combo. That is basically it for the deck. Like, it's just drive check grade 3s, restand your Vanguard, reset your board, and dab on your opponent. So let me talk about the games I played, and hopefully that should convince you to not play this deck. So round 1, I was playing against Nightmare Doll, piloted by the person who lent me this deck, and well-known online Pale Moon enthusiast, Spectral. You know, I'm sure you know them on Twitter. They're a pretty good artist. They're on a few Discords as well. Great guy. And I went first, which is already bad for him, because this is, you know, like I said, a ride up, win the game sort of deck. So him going second is already bad for him. He needs, you know, he has to be very tempo heavy to try and not lose. And unfortunately for him, I rode grade 3, and I whiffed combo actually, because I rode Greedon, I went for it, and I didn't drive check grade 3, so I had to end the turn and pass. But before I continue the story, actually, I have one more thing to mention. Even if you don't drive check a grade 3, like, let's say you have all the pieces in hand, you have Fire Juggler on the board, wherever that is, you know, you're going for it, and you don't drive check grade 3s. Well, if you started the turn with a board, you attack, you boost, you drive check no grade 3s. Worst case scenario, even if you don't check no grade 3s or stands, you can still Soul Blast 2 to suck everything in to get one more Vanguard restand. And occasionally, you know, if it's like, if you've been comboing like 3 or 4 times, like this is your 4th or 5th Vanguard attack, you know, that might get there. Like, your opponent just might not have PGs. Especially if you have enough soul to be getting the 15k every turn. Like, sometimes just one more restand just gets there. So, you know, don't think you have to combo or lose. And it's like, you're drawing 2 every time for no cost. So if you just like reset and, you know, combo 4 times, that's like, you know, grade 3, keep drawing, grade 3, keep drawing. Okay, so there we finally whiffed. But we still had 2 crits. That's like a lot of shield. And you've drawn a bunch of cards. So any time that I was comboing off and I failed to combo off, I was still ending the turn with like 10, 12 cards in hand. So don't think you have to combo or you win. And again, you have Greedon, which lets you die on 7 and not 6. So even if you fail combo once, but it's surprisingly tanky. Like, you can probably survive to 2 combo turns. But anyway, I was playing against EJ, and I went first. I tanked like 2 or 3 times. I whiffed combo because I didn't check grade 3s, passed the turn, and unfortunately for him, he had to ride Chimera, Comicality Chimera, which has no Axel Circle, no Soul Charge on Vanguard place, like no combo, no nothing. And because he had to aggressively like guard all of, you know, he was on 4 damage, and I drove check a crit in one of my earlier attacks. So he was having to PG all of my Vanguard swings, otherwise he was dead. So he only started turn with like 3 or 4 cards in hand, and he drew the Chimera, was forced to ride the Chimera, strode into a Dark Lord into Yvette, and did basically not a lot. You know, he attacked me like 4 times maximum. So obviously because I farmed so many cards in hand, I was able to guard everything, survive, combo off again, and win. And yeah, that's just, again, that's part of what's really absurd, is that if you stay on low damage in the early game, which you probably will be, because most people try and damage deny Pale Moon because they're afraid of Nightmare Doll. You know, you can easily afford to like no guard a bunch of attacks during your opponent's big turn, because you're only on 1 or 2 damage, and you will die on 7. So you can take like 4 damage, and then just re-ride, Persona Ride, and win. So that was round 1. Round 2, I played against another friend of mine, Dom. He's a really well-known player in the UK. He was playing Grand Blue, and he was really out of practice, like super out of practice. Like, he was misplaying left and right. The one thing that he did correctly was damage deny, because I had 3 Dancing Princess in my hand, and I didn't have combo on turn 3. I was missing Fire Juggler, and I was missing Trapezist. And because he was damage denying me, I couldn't Dancing Princess for them. So I ride grade 3, I stride into Yvette, or well, I Dark Lord Princess into Yvette, you know, standard stuff, and pass. And he's playing Grand Blue. And he's doing the standard Grand Blue things like Ghost Ship, Milling, Greed Shade, spamming for heal Guardians. And the fact that he was constantly adding heals with Greed Shade meant that I knew that he could cannoneer my Fire Juggler at any instant. So me going for the Greedon combo was actually not the play there, because he can just kill the Fire Juggler and end the combo. So my plan is to just deck him out, you know, like play it slow, tank up with Greed on, and go from there. And in fact, he reached the point where he re-rides Night Mist with Limit Break 4, strides into Bad Bounty, doesn't have Night Rose in the drop zone, and then he proceeds to attack with Bad Bounty first. And I'm like, okay. And as he drive checks, he realizes I should have attacked with rearguards first. So he just straight up lost out on like 4 rearguard attacks. No, more than that, because he had 2 Ghost Ship and Skull Dragons in the front row. And if he had swung with them first and then Vanguard, he could have gone into Nightstorm, Beatrice, Nightstorm, Skull Dragon combo from there. So he lost out on like 5 or 6 attacks. And because he didn't have Night Rose in the drop zone, it was still in the deck. He ended up having to Night Mist into a Beatrice. So his turn was only 4 attacks. And so I just guarded a bunch, took some, went to 6 on Greed on, and I was like, cool, now I just stride Dust and kill you. And we were halfway through the Dust turn. He was literally about to take his 6 damage when I realized, wait a minute, if I stride Dust over Greed on with 6 damage, I lose Greed on's continuous. The moment I stride Dust, I lose the game. So I ended up killing myself because I forgot about Greed on's con. So I'll admit, that was my mistake because, again, when I was testing and practicing this deck, we strode like twice the entire testing session. So I completely forgot that striding turns off Greed on. And, both of us made massive misplays that game. His was like a tactical misplay that would have lost in the game, but mine was a mechanical misplay that actually did lose me the game. But the point was, we even discussed like, oh, if I had guarded, again, because I had a bunch of cards in hand, because I'm, going into Yvette, drawing 5 cards and not calling anything, not committing a board, I had everything in hand ready to go. Like, I could have guarded everything. I could have stayed on 5 damage. Like, if I just G-guarded, 1 Skull Dragon and then dropped the crit Sentinel for the other Skull Dragon, I would have been totally fine. And I still would have had 2 damage to dust them with. So I should have won that game, but I threw, whatever. I'm not trying to win a buy card anyway. Like, if I earn a buy card, I'm not using it. I'm judging all the events this season. But anyway, that was round 2. It was a bit of a disaster. Round 3, we're playing against Mash, MTC Mash. Everyone knows this guy. He's playing Highlander. Once again, I go first, which is bad for him. I'm doing stuff. I combo. I whiff so I'm missing combo. I'm shot by like 1 or 2 pieces of combo. So I just ride grade 3, swing, pass. And he had to burn a lot of cards in hand because I was also grade 2 gaming him. That's also very important. I was constantly rewriting Night Sky to just set up in grade 2 game him. I was missing Fire Juggler, which is why I didn't win on grade 3 ride. But I rode up, whacked, and passed. And he only had like 4 or 5 cards in hand because he was guarding and like doing stuff. So he rides a grade 3. It wasn't Orange and it wasn't Rain. No, it was Reindeer. He rides Reindeer down to 4 cards in hand. Ditches to stride, 3 cards in hand. And then calls Cutere. So he's down to 2 cards in hand. So he strides into Heltrauda. Very important. He's got 5 cards. Ride to grade 3. Discard for stride. Heltrauda comes down. Heltrauda needs to discard 3 cards. He calls a Cutere. And for some reason that we still don't understand to this very day, names Sedna instead of like Aqua or anything else that bounces the Cutere. He just calls Sedna for some reason. Goes through his entire deck. Doesn't see Sedna. And that's when we realize Sedna's in his drop zone. So he just drops this Cutere that doesn't do anything because he just doesn't find anything. And now he doesn't have discard cost for Heltrauda because it's a discard 3 on attack. So he just goes, I'm an idiot, swing twice, pass. And I go, okay, cool, let's go for it. And he's got, basically, he's got like virtually no cards in hand. He's going to be dead for sure. I ride Greed on, I go for it. On the first check, I drive check a grade 3 and the crit, whatever. And he first damages a defensive OT. I'm like, that's annoying. And now I need to check my OT because I know mine's still in the deck. I was like, well, if I don't check my OT, this turn ends and I have to try and kill you next turn. So, okay, cool. Drive check a grade 3, reset the board, do the combo, swing. He goes, no guard, I have OT. Like, what are you going to do? Hit your OT? Boom, I immediately hit my OT, 3 damage. He heals out of it. So OTs negate each other. I'm on a 43k Vanguard to his 23. Basically, I'm like, well, okay, now I need to, I don't have 10 souls, so I need to drive check 1 more trigger to get there. Hit grade 3s, eventually find a crit, and he dies. So again, I won my round 1 because my opponent massively misplayed. and I won round 2, or I should have won round 2, but I threw because my opponent massively misplayed, and I won round 3 because my opponent massively misplayed. So I get to round 4, playing against Kalen, you know, fellow Strictly Broken member, another good player. He's playing Shiryuki, which is, you know, one of the more okay Dragon Empire decks to go against because it doesn't have as much disruptive. Like, he can't stop my combo. The only problem is that he's going first, so he's going to have the Shiryuki defensive. He's going to be able to, like, you know, try and survive this turn. And he's also got the Shiryuki turn, which he uses to generate a lot of advantage and push me to 4 or 5 before I get the double greed on Insult to get die on 7. And I also know that I can't farm up cards against him as effectively. But he's not playing Silhouette, he's playing Dual Weapon. So my board is safe. I can just put stuff down there. I can put like 5 Jugglers and Trapeze this down in the back row and they'll be safe. Unfortunately, I didn't see enough Jugglers, I didn't see enough Dancing Princesses, and I didn't see enough misdirections. So I only had 1 misdirection and 1 Brassy Bunny. And so and obviously you need 3 of these to go off. So I was never able to combo. So I go right grade 3, don't combo, just whack you and pass. And he ended up having full combo. Like, you know, he had all 3 copies of 6 Flowers in hand. I didn't have a second grade 3 in Soul, so I was going to die on 7 instead of 6. And yeah, I didn't see a heal, didn't see any defensives. He just did Shiryuki things and he just won on his first stride because I wasn't able to combo and kill him. And even though I had a bunch of cards in hand, like a lot of shield, you know, guarding in that, like, against Shiryuki, you have to guard correctly, otherwise they use 6 Flowers, minus 20k your Vanguard, and you lose. So Kalen's loss was, you know, a legitimate loss, which is what I expected throughout the day. I was expecting to go 0x. Like, I was not expecting to win a single game, and the fact that the deck did as well as it did, due to the questionable decisions by my opponents, once again, testifies to that this deck is not good. Don't play it. It's funny, but only if you hate yourself more than your opponent. But that is going to be it for this video. Sorry that Tony and I haven't produced any content for Premium Collection or Clan Collection 5 or 6. I don't want to promise any content, but we are working on something. But until then, thanks for always supporting the channel. You know, once again, follow us on Twitter, subscribe to the YouTube, bell button for notifications, goddammit algorithm, leave a comment, hashtag engagement. And as always, you know, Strictly Broken TG, shout out to the sponsor, code SBTGCA for discount on your order. And until then, we'll see you on Twitter, on Discord, or in the next video or on stream. But until then, check out all of us below. See you soon. Have a lovely day. Bye-bye.